This is ABC15 Mornings.
Multiple children in the hospital this morning after someone opened fire at a community event in Mesa. This morning, we're hearing more about the terrifying evening from a woman who was caught in the crossfire.
And the countdown continues. We're just 16 days away from Election Day, the latest from the campaign trail, plus how the president plans on spending his time in Arizona tomorrow.
Also, a local organization is helping kids go places by providing families with the resources they need to get back on track after what has been an arguably stressful year for so many people. So we know any avenue that can help parents take a breath and keep smiles on their kids' faces is doing a big service to the community. So we want to shine a light on that on this Sunday morning as we come up on 6 o'clock. I'm Nohelani Graff.
And I'm Mark Thompson, social distancing from home. And one good way, to take care of that mental health is to maybe get outside, get a little fresh air, keeping your social distance, of course, but get some exercise in. And right now, during these morning hours, perfect time to do so.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the summer who say that just the oppressive heat made staying indoors and having to quarantine so much harder because it was hard to even go out in your own yard. So now definitely stretch your legs, take advantage and get outside, especially in these morning hours. Take a look at these temperatures. We're continuing to drop, and I think we'll drop maybe even another degree as we get closer to sunrise this morning in the next half hour, down to 60 degrees in Glendale as well as Goodyear. It's 66 in Mesa, 67 in Phoenix, and I know that we've got a few 50s out there, so I'll show you that coming up in the full forecast. If you're going out to hit the links this morning, it's perfect golfing weather. You might even need that light long sleeve if you're one of the very first ones up on the tee box this morning, because we'll stay in the 60s for another couple hours. If you're waiting until the second half of the day and closer to sunset for your game, then we will be in the 90s, so it'll be a little bit warmer, but catching a break by a couple of degrees compared to yesterday. So I will walk you through today's warm-up hour by hour coming up in that most accurate forecast.
All right, hey, thank you. And the search for justice continues this morning. Just a tragic story as 4 children as young as 4 years old and as old as 16 are recovering right now after a shooting in Mesa. And we were all on top of this yesterday morning as well. City leadership, including the chief of police, heartbroken and outraged by the violence. Mayor Giles tweeting, "Please join me in praying for the families and victims. Our city will use every resource to bring those responsible to justice." And the shots, they were fired Friday night at a pop-up food event outside of a shopping center near Dobson and Guadalupe. The search continues for that shooter as the children recover this morning. ABC 15's Adam Waltz spoke with a couple caught in the crossfire.
We'll be here until 11, guys.
Dozens of people lining up for food at this community event.
The line's not that long. We'll get through the line.
Our number was only like a couple of numbers away.
Just minutes later,
we just started hearing shots ring, and after the first shot, everybody just scattered.
Me and her both just knew and took off.
Sally and her boyfriend running toward their car when she was hit in the foot with a piece of bullet shrapnel.
I felt my whole foot vibrate and start stinging.
In total, 7 people were shot, including 4 children, ages 1, 6, 9, and 16.
I saw them carrying away a small child that looked severely injured, limp, not moving at all. And people were screaming to help the baby.
The 1-year-old is in extremely critical condition, while the other victims' conditions vary, but are expected to survive.
It's a sad and it's a tragic day.
Mesa police without a suspect today. Chief Ken Cost very blunt about the severity of this shooting.
They crossed the line. They shot children, and it's unacceptable.
Adam Waltz reporting in Mesa. Police say that the car that was used in all of this may be a boxy style white SUV like a Kia Soul, but other than that, they don't really have a lot to go on, and they're asking anyone who may have seen something, knows the shooter, to step forward, call Mesa Police, or you can remain anonymous by calling Silent Witness.
Other local headlines this morning. 3 people rescued from a canal this morning after the car they were in ended up upside down in the water. You can see it with the light shining on it there. This happened near 16th Street and Indian School. Crews tell us they did have to pull the driver and 2 passengers out of that vehicle. But the fortunate news here is everyone is expected to be okay. Phoenix police also investigating an overnight shooting. This happened near 55th Avenue and Broadway Road. 1 person taken to the hospital. Police have not released any information on that person's condition at this time, and it's also still unclear what led up to that shooting. Phoenix police also asking the public's health in another case. They're trying to identify and find a robbery suspect. Watch this video. You'll see her show up in your screen. It's a woman at the window there, and then she passes by. Her face is covered by a bandana, but maybe you recognize her build, her hairstyle there. If you do, then you should match it up with this. Police think that she's about 20 years old. She was involved in a robbery where she threatened a store employee with a knife and demanded money. She then left in a white SUV. So if you have any information, again, if you think you recognize her, call police or even silent witness. And remember, you can remain anonymous.
And we've got a traffic alert to tell you about this morning. Glendale Avenue is now reopened from El Mirage Road to Glen Harbor. It was shut down for a time because of a bad crash. The details of that accident have not yet been released, but our crew on scene telling us that a car involved did flip over and landed upside down. So far, no word on any injuries or a cause. As soon as we learn more, we will be sure to update you right here on ABC 15 and, of course, at ABC15.com. The horse fire, it continues to burn in the Prescott National Forest. Nearly 8,500 acres burned with no containment so far. The flames in such a remote area and spreading so quickly with plenty of fuel, firefighters had to try to contain it with air tankers only. The nearby town of Crown King still under evacuation orders this morning.
A busy weekend on the campaign trail in Arizona's Senate race. Martha McSally and Mark Kelly both getting out to speak with voters. Kelly suspending his Saturday in Eloy he spent his Saturday in Eloy, I should say, and then headed to Scottsdale to meet with supporters there. McSally also crisscrossing through Pinal and Maricopa counties, holding a meet and greet in Apache Junction and then attending a rally in Queen Creek. You know, Arizona voters are deciding on 2 ballot measures this year as well, including the legalization of recreational marijuana. So this week, the Secretary of State's office is offering people a chance to learn a little bit more about what they're voting for or against.
It is time to modernize Arizona's draconian marijuana laws.
If you haven't read the 17 pages and agree with every word, you need to vote no.
You can see there are representatives from both sides of Prop 207 laying out their case to voters after the Secretary of State's office explained exactly what a yes or no vote would mean. If you still have questions about that ballot measure and about the education funding measure, there are still 2 more town halls that are scheduled. The next one happens tomorrow afternoon at 2, and you can find the link at azsos.gov.
President Trump and Joe Biden making their final arguments to voters, especially in key battleground states as they look to secure your vote. This as record numbers of people have already cast their ballots. ABC's Karina Mitchell has details from the campaign trail.
With just 16 days until Election Day, the race for the White House is playing out across several battleground states President Trump carried 4 years ago. The president will spend today with supporters in Las Vegas, Reno, Carson City, Nevada, and Southern California. He held outdoor events in Michigan and Wisconsin Saturday. Few masks worn in the crowd, but no social distancing.
And that's and we're rounding the corner. We got the vaccines rolled out, but even without it, we're rounding the corner. You'll see it. We're rounding the corner, and we have unbelievable. The vaccines are unbelievable.
Democratic challenger Joe Biden, who was off the trail on Saturday, slammed Trump for holding a rally in Wisconsin, a state that's seeing a record number of daily COVID cases. In a statement, Biden said in part, Wisconsin is in the grips of one of the worst coronavirus outbreaks in the country. We've lost far too many lives to this pandemic, and the sad fact is, it didn't have to be this way. Biden will head to North Carolina later today for a rally in Durham. His running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, set to return to campaigning Monday after suspending travel last week after an aide tested positive for COVID-19. Harris tested negative. Karina Mitchell, ABC News, New York.
And President Trump will make 2 stops in Arizona tomorrow for events in Prescott and Tucson. You can download the ABC15 app for complete coverage. Also, you can find both of these events on your streaming devices.
Let's check on that most accurate forecast. Again, I told you I'd walk you through today's forecast hour by hour. Remember, the Tempe Triathlon is happening this morning at 8 o'clock. Want to wish everyone good luck. And when your race starts at 8, we're going to be in the 70s. It'll be nice and comfortable for a while. It'll take us until about 10 to hit the 80s, and we'll stay in the 80s through those lunchtime hours. But we will cross over into the 90s today. 96 is that forecast high. Still close to 10 degrees above the average for this time of year. And the record not that far off, 103 set back in the early 2000s, but I don't think that we'll come close to the record, and we're staying far away from triple digits for the time being, so we're thankful for that. We are starting a cooling trend here in the valley, so I'll show you how long that will last in that 7-day forecast coming up in just minutes.
All right, no, hey, thank you. It is 6:11 now on your Sunday morning. Coming up, a mission that started in Kentucky now making its way to New York City. Breonna Taylor's family organizing activists in hopes of creating change just weeks before the election. Also, the Women's March happening now. This was twice in 1 year. Why now, more than ever, people from across the country, they're joining in this push to protect women's rights. The family of Breonna Taylor leading hundreds of New Yorkers this weekend pushing for racial equality. Now, Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, speaking to a crowd saying that she doesn't want anyone else to lose a loved one at the hands of police violence, so she's putting out her attention on the election season.
Y'all got to pull up and vote because Breonna came. We in these streets. If it ain't going to be no justice, it ain't going to be no peace.
The rally, called a State of Emergency, Get Out the Vote, taking place outside of Trump International and Central Park. Organizers are starting the rallies in Taylor's hometown of Louisville. Along with dozens of elected officials, they hope to gain strength in numbers and a vote towards change. Now to our nation's capital, where thousands came together to participate in a women's march. Now, this was the annual Women's March had already happened earlier this year, but this was the second one. And with the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the organization, they wanted to march again to honor her and fight for women's rights. Saturday's demonstration reaching across the country. Hundreds also marching in Chicago, women of all ages, protesting President Trump's conservative Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. On the West Coast, activists in San Francisco voicing their concerns when it comes to Barrett's nomination as well. Many worried that she could reverse the rights women have fought so hard for over the decades.
15 minutes past the top of the hour. Let's get to that most accurate forecast now. We've got some cold spots across the state this morning. We're below freezing. To start the day off in Window Rock, we're in the 30s in Heber as well. The Grand Canyon in the 20s this morning, but it's nice and cool in Prescott and Payson as well as Sedona, starting off in the 50s. And we've got 60s to our west and to our south. In fact, we have several spots that are quite a bit cooler at this hour than they were 24 hours ago. Bullhead City is more than 10 degrees cooler than it was 24 hours ago. Same with Safford. Even here in the valley, we're down 4 degrees from this time yesterday. Take a look at these temperatures. We're seeing more 50s show up across the board. Wickenburg is in the upper 50s, mid 50s for Buckeye as well as Maricopa. Chandler at 57 this morning. We've got 60 degrees in Glendale, low 60s in Ahwatukee as well as Santan Valley and Apache Junction. So it's a great morning to get outside, get some exercise in, or at the very least while you're brewing up that morning cup of joe, open up your windows, slide open that patio door and prop it open for a little while and let the breeze flow in, because we do have a light breeze around 10 miles an hour blowing out of the east this morning. That's going to help keep our temperatures cool for quite a bit longer. We'll stay in the 60s through that 8 o'clock hour. Then we warm into the 70s. So still nice and pleasant if you want to get out for a hike. By 10 o'clock, we're in the 80s. So it's going to take us a little bit longer to warm into the 80s today. And at lunchtime, we're still just in the upper 80s. Live view of the McDowell Mountains this morning. You can see that sun getting closer to rising, and also some of the construction work that is framing downtown Phoenix and portions of Tempe this morning. There is still just a little bit of a haze as we see in these morning hours, but our air quality is in the moderate range. So unless you're particularly sensitive to ozone particulate matter, then otherwise you'll be fine. However, today you might notice that your nose is a little bit more itchy and maybe you're sneezing a little bit more today, because our allergen count, our pollen, has moved into the moderate category and will stay there for the next couple of days. Talking about those forecast highs today, 96 is the forecast high pretty much across the valley from the west side to the east side, with a few variations. Maricopa will be at 98, 97 in Wickenburg, 95 in Apache Junction, Fountain Hills, and out in Santan Valley, and Anthem and Cave Creek staying in the low 90s today. So even though we're still above the average, we're starting to drop our temperatures just a little bit more. We're still going to see some pretty toasty conditions off to our west. We'll hit triple digits in Yuma and come close to that in Lake Havasu City and Bullhead City, as well as those surrounding areas like Parker. Up in Sedona, 88 is your forecast high. We're going to stay in the 70s in Payson today, low 80s in Show Low, 70s in Flagstaff as well. And taking a look at that 7-day forecast, staying in the mid 90s as we head into the start of the work week. High pressure is still in command though, so we're going to spike our temperatures a little bit on Tuesday and Wednesday back into the upper 90s, but that'll be short-lived. Then by Thursday, we're back in the mid 90s, and then breezes and a low pressure system dropping our temperatures again by next weekend, bringing us into the low 90s. So we're getting even closer to those 80s, Mark.
Sounds good. No, hey, thank you. Still ahead, a number of Valley high schools are now at risk for a COVID-19 outbreak. We'll hear from some concerned parents who are just looking for a few answers. But after the break, how the pandemic is impacting those using a surrogate from another country. A really important story you want to hear coming up.
Surrogacy has grown increasingly more popular, with about 700 babies born in the United States every year. It's an alternative for a lot of families who struggle with infertility, but now COVID-19 has posed a new challenge. So to explain that to us this morning is Parham Czar, who is with the Egg Donor and Surrogacy Institute. Parham, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So talk to me a little bit about what the problem is that's come up because of COVID-19.
So the challenge that we and the intended parents are facing now is a lot of the intended parents are actually from out of the United States. So as their surrogates began delivering during the COVID era, the parents were not able to unite with their children in the United States. So the children are born and the parents cannot be here.
Because we have travel restrictions right now with a lot of foreign countries. They can't come in, we can't go there. So what happens with those babies then that are born in the United States and they can't connect with their parents?
So, well, we at EDSI, for example, have had about 30 babies that have been born during the COVID times where the parents could not be here. And we've had to really innovate and figure out other ways that we can make sure that the baby is safe, secure, fed, held, loved, and to make sure that the parents' anxieties are alleviated, knowing that their children are taken care of. It's anything from the surrogate taking care of the baby after the baby is born, which is something we would never have done pre-COVID, to hiring nannies and setting up apartments, places with cameras where the intended parents can view their children until we can figure out a way to safely unite them with their parents.
Right, who's footing the bill for that? And certainly for surrogates, like you said, that's not something you would do before because that's not their intention, is to parent that child.
Of course, the parents are responsible, and they are gladly paying the fees that they need to pay in order to make sure that the child remains secure. But it goes beyond the financial aspect. It's all of the emotional aspect, all of the the heartache and frustrations that they're facing. And of course, we're here. They're like our family. So we try to help our family as much as we can.
There's certainly no end in sight at the moment. There's no known date when those restrictions will change. And I understand a large portion of the client base is from China. So we certainly don't know when that will change. Does that mean that you have paused or will pause surrogacy with those clients for now, because we don't know when they can go back and forth?
Well, in order for the intended parents to do a surrogacy cycle, they need to do in vitro fertilization first to create their embryos. If they can't come to the United States to create the embryos, of course, they don't have any embryos to use for a surrogate. So yes, those are paused at the moment.
Now, there is another aspect to this that, you know, we have to address, because there is some controversy to it. A lot of people take issue with the fact that a foreign parent can come to this country, have a baby, and that baby is granted citizenship, ultimately creating an anchor baby for them so they can bring that child back and still be an American citizen. It can help with their own immigration. Is that ethical? Do you support that?
I assure you that is not at all in the forefront of the mind process of the intended parents, who for so long have had the absolute desire and urge to have a child and the need to have a child. And what they care about, first of all, surrogacy is illegal in some parts of the world, and that's why they do come to the United States. And also the medical technology that we have here is born on the best. And a parent who really desperately wants to have their own child and they can avail themselves of this amazing miracle, they do. So it's not, it's not fair to reduce it to just an aspect of citizenship. Those are the laws of this country, and they might change. I don't think it will at all change the desire of a parent to have a child.
Do you think that there's have you seen at all any parents trying to then change their immigration status if the travel bans don't change so that they can come here and have a baby?
Well, I'm not an immigration expert, but from what I understand, the parents cannot get any citizenship. I think that's a misnomer because of the child. First of all, the child has to turn 18 before the child can become an adult and assert his or her rights with respect to the citizenship and maybe apply for the parents. But the parents are not gaining any immediate benefit from this.
And in the meantime, right now, we have babies stuck in limbo with families that were not intended to be their own. I guess, what's the long game? Do you just wait it out? Is that about all you can do right now?
Right now, all we can do is make sure that the babies remain safe and they remain secure and they are fed and loved and touched until the parents can be united with them.
Yeah, the unintended consequences of this global pandemic that nobody could have foreseen, and innocent children caught in limbo, it definitely pulls at the heartstrings. Karim, thank you so much for shedding light on this issue this morning. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.